If 100 million people dieted, you would expect them to lose some weight, right? But is that what happened? In this video, I will comment on a study published this month in the JAMA Open Network. It's a journal by the American Medical Association, and I want to comment on their strange and unexpected findings. Coming right up. Hey, I'm Dr. Ekberg. I'm a holistic doctor and a former Olympic decathlete. And if you want to truly master health by understanding how the body really works, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss anything. So this was a very large study. It was over 48,000 people followed over a number of years, and they found some things they didn't expect to find. And this has been commented on. It's been written up by WebMD and Newsweek and a lot of other people. The first number they reported in the study was the number of people who were trying to lose weight. In 1999, that number was 34% of people had been trying to lose weight sometime in the previous year. And in 2016, that number had gone up to 42%. So this represents over 100 million people. One of the head researchers in the study was Dr. Lee Kaplan, and he said the following: where weight loss efforts are increasing, we can expect a decreasing trend of obesity, but it is not decreasing. In other words, they expected people to lose weight, but it didn't happen. I mean, that's reasonable. If a lot of people want to lose weight and they try to lose weight, you would think that would be the outcome. But from 1999, the body mass index on average in the US went from 28 to 29.4. And the limit, the number where it turns into obesity by definition is 30. So it's like just the cutoff for going from overweight to obesity. So the average American is now only a few tenths of a point away from obese. The average weight in that time period went from 176 to 184 pounds. So more people are trying to lose weight, and on average, the population went 8 pounds heavier. And if we look just a little bit further back and we look at obesity in 1980, it was 15%. In 1990, it was 23%. In 1999, 31%. And today, obesity is 40% of the population. The percentage being overweight went from 47% in 1980 to 56% in 1990, 65% in 1999, and 72% in 2016. So more people are trying to lose weight. The body mass index is going up, the average weight is going up, the rate of obesity is going up, the rate of overweight is going up. So these numbers are raising some eyebrows. They're having people maybe for the first time question if the guidelines are really right. Can we really follow the advice and lose weight? So these numbers come from something called NHANES, National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey. And it's been ongoing for decades, and they keep this going so they can get ongoing data. And they ask people in the survey, what are you doing to lose weight? And people are saying that they are eating less, they are eating fewer calories, they are exercising more, they are increasing their water intake, they're eating more fruits and vegetables and salads, they are decreasing their consumption of sugar, candy, sweets, junk food, and fast food. And they commented in the study and they said that most of these measures had improved sharply. Okay? The number of people attempting these things have increased sharply. So it wasn't just like a slight change. So more people are trying, and they're trying harder. And yet, not much is happening. So if they're doing all these supposed right things, but they're not getting any results, then why is that happening? So they try to explore these reasons in this research paper. So in this research paper, they also try to explore the reasons why this is happening. If people are trying harder and they're doing all the things that are recommended, then why is weight and obesity and BMI going up instead of down? And the head researcher, Dr. Lee, one of the points that he suggested was maybe they are trying to diet but aren't pursuing it in an effective manner. Well, that kind of goes without saying that obviously if they're not getting any results, if the results are opposite of what they're doing, then it's not an effective manner. And then he goes on to saying many of them might not have implemented weight loss strategies or applied a minimal level effort. So in other words, he's saying that sure, the people may be trying, they may be saying that they're trying to lose weight, but they're not either actually doing it or they're not trying hard enough. So again, it comes back to the idea that the suggestions, the rules, the recommendations are just fine, but there's something wrong with people's character. They're just not trying hard enough. They look for more explanations and they say that adherence is the primary factor associated with a successful response to a weight loss attempt. In other words, you have to stick to it, and people aren't sticking to it. So why is that? They suggest, however, adherence to such modified diets, which is the best predictor of success in any dietary modification, is very difficult to maintain. So again, they say you gotta stick to it, but it is really, really hard, so people don't. So then what do? If we have to eat less calories, but then we get hungry, so we can't keep it up, then now what do? So to kind of summarize the paper, they say the following. Taken together, these findings suggest a need to increase the promotion of effective strategies for weight loss, including calorie reduction and increased physical activity among all adults attempting to lose weight. So here's the problem. They just keep reiterating the same dogma over and over. You gotta eat less, exercise more. Fewer calories in, more calories out. But it doesn't matter if the problem is that the guidelines are wrong or if the problem is that people can't follow it or won't follow it, because the end result is the same. People are not losing weight. They are gaining weight year by year. And here's the problem I have with blaming it on willpower, because if it was all about willpower, that we're fat because we don't have the willpower to not eat when we're hungry, then does that mean that we had willpower prior to 1980? That since 1980 we have given birth to a couple of generations without willpower? That willpower was just something that was prevalent, it was common, it was a human trait prior to 1980? No, obviously not, okay? Willpower is not what has changed. So we have to start asking why. What is it that makes people hungry? If people are eating more than they're burning, which is obvious because weight is going up, why is that happening? What are the foods doing? What are the hormones doing? What are the factors that influence hunger? Because we can't just blame it on people. If this many people try for that long and it's not working, we gotta change something. There was also an article in WebMD about the same study, and they talked to some other people. One was Dr. Lee Kaplan, and he had some other views on this phenomena. He said that these results clearly indicate that there's a fundamental flaw in the way that we have been told to lose weight. And Dr. Lee continues, there is one obvious conclusion we can draw. The way we have been told as a population to lose weight doesn't work. And of course, I can only agree with that, and it's refreshing to hear it from a source that's actually even being published on WebMD. And Dr. Lee has some insight that gets us a little bit closer to the actual problem. He says, eating less and exercising won't work long term because your body regulates how much fat it carries, and that regulation is outside your personal control. So there's one of my favorite words, regulates. It means that living things have behavior. living things adapt to the circumstances. So if the body is behaving a certain way, it's because of something the body has been exposed to. It regulates. I do have to disagree, though, with the last part of his statement where he says that that regulation is outside of your personal control. Because he's right in one sense, but he's wrong in another. Because in the moment when you're hungry, your hormones are telling you to eat. You don't have personal control in that moment over those hormones, especially not more than once. You can be hungry for a little while, but you can't be hungry the rest of your life. But what you can do is you can change the type of foods that you eat that will change the type of hormones that your body produces that regulate hunger. So over time, if you eat different foods, then you have different hormones and you won't get as hungry. So in that sense, you have a lot of control over to regulate your hunger and your fat storing and fat burning. So it's very refreshing to hear that viewpoint spoken by someone in the medical field, but then of course it's just as disheartening to hear how they suggest to solve the problem, because then Dr. Kaplan suggests a true cure for obesity is going to require medications or therapies that help readjust the body's self-regulation of fat. Once you realize this is biology, then you need a biological and medical solution. So this is why I have this channel. It is to help people understand the difference between a holistic approach and a medical approach, an allopathic approach. In the allopathic approach, we treat symptoms. In a holistic approach, we treat the whole organism. We help the organism function better so that the symptoms go away. And that is the key that we have to understand in this, that the body does not require chemicals to regulate this. Even if it was possible that they find a drug, a medication, a chemical that could force or trick or guide or help the body into regulating fat differently, it would be imposing your will on the body and it would have side effects. All drugs have side effects. And I'm not saying that there would never ever be a case where that wouldn't be appropriate, but for the vast majority of people, they can just change the behavior that created the problem and then the body will come back to balance. We just have to understand what those things are. And they're certainly not about eating sugar and bread and processed foods and vegetable oils and 6 meals a day, because that's what created the problem. We just have to understand how do we reverse the problem and then how do we live like people lived before this problem was present. What did people do? So the single biggest issue that we have in this whole obesity situation is that we treat the weight as the problem. All of these people, if you ask these 100 million people what their goal was, I bet you that 99.9999 some percent would say, I want to lose weight. I bet you hardly any of them said, I want to get healthy. I want to get my body into balance so that it learns how to regulate this weight and that I can find a normal weight for my body type. I bet you that hardly ever happened. And everyone, including the doctors and the dietitians and the policymakers and the people trying to lose weight, they all see the weight as the problem, but the excess weight, the obesity, is a result of an imbalance. We have to understand what the imbalance is and we have to fix that imbalance. And if you watched any of the videos on this channel, you know that we have a whole library that talks about the mechanism. There's one hormone in the body that is like a sledgehammer in terms of power compared to all other hormones in the body, and that is insulin. Insulin is a fat-storing hormone. When you have a high level of insulin, you become insulin resistant. Insulin will store excess food and insulin will make you eat more food. Insulin resistance makes you hungry. Insulin resistance prevents you from using stored fat. That is the fat storing mechanism that Dr. Kaplan was talking about. And the vast majority of people can regulate that themselves by reducing the carbs and reducing the sugar and reducing the frequency of meals. Again, like we talk about in a bunch of different videos about the mechanisms, the tools that you have to do this. But it is not about calories, because once you try to cut calories, you become hungry. When you teach the body to regulate hormones, you eat fewer calories because your body learns to regulate. There's a world of difference there. One works and the other doesn't. So to really understand this, we just have to look at the really simple facts. That what did humans do before 1980? We didn't live all these tens of thousands of years and where we were lean and we had a properly functioning hunger mechanism, and then all of a sudden we got to 1980, 1990, and humans became deficient in some drug or some chemical that helped us regulate it. Okay? The chemical, whether it would help or not, it's not the problem, because it's not that we were missing it when we stayed thin for all those tens of thousands of years prior to 1980. So in order to understand insulin, we just have to understand that it's really, really simple. Insulin is a hormone that is released in response to food intake. If you eat sugar or carbs, then you will trigger a lot of insulin. If you eat protein, you'll trigger less. And if you eat fat, you trigger hardly any. So the more sugar and carbs you eat, the more insulin you trigger, the more insulin resistant you will become over time. So in order to reduce insulin resistance, all you really have to do is reduce sugar, reduce carbs, and reduce the number of meals. When you eat 6 times a day, you're telling your body to produce insulin and to store the excess 6 times a day. If you eat twice a day, then you have a whole lot more time where you're not telling your body to store fat. It's really not any harder than that. The trick comes in. It's very simple, but it's not easy because life is hard. Life gets in the way. It's difficult to find food anymore. If you go to the store, there's maybe 50 things out of 50,000 that help your health and the other interfere with your health. And it's also difficult because we tend to look at each other. We tend to listen to, hey, what did that person do? And one person says, oh, all I did was I just skipped snacks. I ate 3 meals a day. I didn't change anything else. I ate bread and pasta and meat and vegetables, and I lost all the weight. Well, that's great for that person, but for most people who are insulin resistant, that's not going to do it. So don't listen to that person and say, oh, well, this is unfair because this stuff isn't working for me. This is working for you, you just might have to take it to a different level. So what people have found works really well for 90+% of people is ketogenic diet, very low carb, or intermittent fasting, or a combination of the 3. And then some people have to go down to 1 meal a day, and some people have to go down to 1 meal every other day. But whatever it is, then you have to do that to reverse the insulin resistance. And then once the insulin resistance has been reversed, now your body is going to be in some sort of new balance. You may not ever be able to go back to eating 6 meals a day, but you'll figure out what that balance is over time. The key to understand, though, is that when you reduce insulin resistance, you get less hungry. When you start doing these things, you get less hungry. And that's the whole problem. This is why these people fail over and over and over and over, because when they cut calories without reducing insulin resistance, they get hungry, and you can only be hungry for so long. So now the greatest weight loss experiment in human history has been recorded. The results are in, JAMA Open Network published them, and they didn't seem to learn a whole lot. They noticed that it failed miserably, and then they suggested that we continue doing the same thing, but that we increase the promotion of doing the same thing, and it's still not going to work. Then Dr. Kaplan suggested that, this really isn't going to work. This is the wrong way. We've been told the wrong thing. You just don't have any control. We need medication. And that is equally frustrating to hear, because we are seeing people who are doing this and they are changing their lives and they're changing other people's lives by sharing it. So keep studying and keep trying and keep learning enough that you can figure this out and how it works for you. If you enjoyed this video, then you're going to love that one and that one. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.